First Contact Marcus Rivera had seen plenty of strange things during his 15 years as a deep space salvager, but nothing prepared him for the derelict Vorthik vessel drifting in the outer rim. The ship's bioorganic hull pulsed with a faint crimson glow, its tentacle-like appendages frozen in the vacuum of space. Most salvagers would have turned away from such an obvious death trap, but Marcus had bills to pay and a reputation for being either fearless or stupid, depending on who asked. Atmospheric readings are weird, he muttered, checking his scanner. As he docked with the alien craft, the air inside was breathable, which was suspicious enough. Vorthik ships were notorious for their toxic environments, designed to kill any species that dared board them. The airlock hissed open, and Marcus stepped into a corridor that seemed to breathe around him. The walls were lined with what looked like veins, pulsing with that same red light. His boots made soft squelching sounds against the organic floor. Every instinct screamed at him to leave, but the ship's distress beacon had been broadcasting for weeks. If there were survivors, they'd be worth a fortune to the right buyer. He found her in what appeared to be a stasis chamber, though it looked more like a cocoon made of hardened resin. The Vorthik female was tall and lithe, her midnight blue skin marked with silver patterns that seemed to shift in the dim light. Her face was angular, almost elfin, with high cheekbones and large, amber eyes that tracked his movement despite her apparent unconsciousness. But it was her mouth that made him pause. Her lips were slightly parted, revealing elongated canine teeth that gleamed like polished ivory. "Jesus," Marcus whispered, approaching cautiously. The Vorthik were known as the galaxy's apex predators, a race of psychic vampires who fed on the life force of other species. They'd been at war with the Terran Federation for over a century, and encountering one alive was supposed to be a death sentence. The stasis field flickered and died with a sound like breaking glass. The female's eyes snapped open, fixing on Marcus with an intensity that made his blood run cold. She moved with inhuman speed, her hand wrapping around his throat before he could react. Her fangs extended fully, and she leaned in close enough that he could feel her breath on his neck. But then something extraordinary happened. Her fangs brushed against his skin, and she jerked back as if burned. Her amber eyes widened in shock, and she released him, stumbling backward. "Impossible," she whispered in accented standard. Her voice was like velvet over steel. You're one of us." Marcus rubbed his throat, heart pounding. "Lady, I hate to break it to you, but I'm about as human as they come." She shook her head, her expression shifting from predatory hunger to something resembling awe. "No, you carry the mark. The blood sings to me, but it single quotes S. different, stronger." She tilted her head, studying him like a puzzle she couldn't solve. "What are you?" The awakening Zara Vekthul had been in stasis for 3 standard years, drifting through the void after her ship's crew succumbed to the Crimson Plague. The bioship's emergency protocols had kept her alive, but barely. She should have been ravenous, desperate to feed on the first living creature she encountered. Instead, she found herself staring at this human male with a mixture of fascination and confusion. "My name is Marcus Rivera," the human said, keeping his distance, but showing no sign of the terror most species displayed when confronted by a Vorthik. "I'm a salvager. Your ship's been broadcasting a distress signal." Zara touched her throat, feeling the familiar burn of hunger, but it was muted. "Wrong. You said you were human, but that's impossible. I can sense the blood resonance in you. It's like nothing I've ever encountered." She moved closer, and Marcus tensed but didn't flee. Smart. Running would only trigger her hunting instincts. "Your species and mine have been at war for over a century. We feed on your life force, your very essence. It should be like honey to—" She paused, studying his face. "But you're different. There's something else in your blood. Something ancient. Marcus frowned. Look, lady, Zara, she interrupted. And you're going to help me figure out what you are, Marcus Revere. The ship's biosensors suddenly came alive, pulsing with urgent crimson light. Zara's head snapped up, her predatory instincts kicking in. We have company, she hissed. 3 ships closing fast. Vorthic military patrol. Marcus's hand moved to his sidearm. Friends of yours? Hardly. Zara's fangs extended fully. I'm considered a rogue by my people. They'll kill us both on sight. She moved to the ship's neural interface, placing her palm against the pulsing wall. The vessel responded instantly, its dormant systems coming online. This ship is dying, but it has enough power for one jump. Where's your vessel? Docked to your port airlock, Marcus replied, already moving toward the exit. But it's not exactly built for combat. Zara followed him, her movements fluid and predatory. It doesn't need to be. I know a place where we can hide, but first, we need to understand what you are. She paused at the airlock, her amber eyes boring into his. My people have legends about a hybrid species, one that could bridge the gap between predator and prey. We called them the Chosen. Chosen for what? To end the war, Zara said simply, or to destroy everything trying. The first energy blast rocked the dying ship, and Marcus could hear the whine of approaching fighters. We can discuss my cosmic destiny later, he said, cycling the airlock. Right now, let's focus on not dying. But as they transferred to his ship, Zara couldn't shake the feeling that finding Marcus Rivera was no accident. The blood resonance was growing stronger, calling to something deep in her genetic memory. If the legends were true, then this human wasn't just her salvation. He might be the key to saving both their species. The question was, from what? Part 3. Hidden Truths. The neutral zone station Nexus 7 existed in the void between Terran and Vorthic. Space, a haven for smugglers, mercenaries, and those who preferred to avoid the war entirely. Marcus had used it as a base of operations for years, but he'd never brought a Vorthic aboard. The station's mixed population of aliens and humans gave Zara suspicious looks as they made their way through the crowded corridors. Your friends. Causing quite a stir, commented Vera Blackstone, the station's administrator, as she led them to a secure meeting room. The former Terran intelligence officer had gone private after the Battle of Kepler-7, selling information to the highest. Bitter. I've had 3 different bounty hunters ask about her already. She's not exactly a friend, Marcus replied, glancing at Zara, who was studying the station's layout with predatory interest. More like a complicated situation. Vera sealed the door and activated privacy shields. I'll bet. So, what brings a human salvager and a Vorthic warrior to my little corner of paradise? Zara spoke before Marcus could answer. We need access to the Terran genetic databases. Specifically, the classified files on Project Nightfall. Vera's cybernetic eye whirred as it focused on Zara. That's some heavy clearance you're asking for. Project Nightfall was black ops, buried so deep most people think it's a myth. She turned to Marcus. What's your involvement in this? Marcus shifted uncomfortably. Apparently, I'm some kind of hybrid. According to her, my blood has special properties. Show her, Zara said quietly. Show her what you showed me. Reluctantly, Marcus rolled up his sleeve, revealing the distinctive scarring on his forearm geometric patterns that seemed to shift and change in the light. Vera's expression shifted from skeptical to shocked. Holy shit, she whispered. You're a chimera. A what now? Vera activated her holodisplay, pulling up classified files that shouldn't have existed. Project Nightfall was the Federation's answer to the Vorthic threat. They took volunteers, desperate people, mostly, and experimented with genetic modification. The goal was to create humans who could interface with Vorthic biotechnology, maybe even resist their feeding. The hologram showed medical files, test subjects, and failure rates that made Marcus's stomach turn. Most of the subjects died, Vera continued. The few who survived were ... changed, enhanced, but the project was shut down after the Omega incident. What was the Omega incident? Zara asked, though her tone suggested she already knew. The test subjects went rogue. They weren't just immune. To Vorthic feeding, they could drain life force themselves. The military tried to contain them, but Vera gestured helplessly. They disappeared, all of them. Marcus stared at the genetic markers on the screen, recognizing patterns that matched his own DNA. Are you saying I'm descended from these experiments? More than that, Zara interjected. You're not just descended from them. You are one of them. She stood, moving to the viewport that showed the swirling nebula beyond the station. The Vorthic have our own legends about the Chimera. We called them the death-touched beings who could walk between worlds, immune to our hunger, but capable of wielding our power. That's impossible, Marcus protested. I'm 35 years old. This project was shut down decades ago. Vera's files painted a different picture. According to these records, the Chimera subjects had extended lifespans, some kind of cellular regeneration that kept them young. She paused, studying Marcus with new interest. The question is, why are you manifesting now? Zara turned from the viewport, her amber eyes reflecting the nebula's glow. Because the war is escalating. Both sides are developing new weapons, new ways to kill each other. The galaxy is about to burn, and something in the cosmic balance is responding. You're talking about me like I'm some kind of chosen one, Marcus said, his voice tight with frustration. Maybe you are, Zara replied. Or maybe you're just the first domino in a chain reaction that will reshape everything. The station's alert klaxons suddenly blared, and Vera's expression went grim. We've got Vorthic battle cruisers dropping out of hyperspace. They've found us. The hunt begins. The Vorthic battle cruiser Crimson Fang hung in space like a predatory beast, its bioorganic hull pulsing with aggressive red light. On the bridge, War Prime Kether Volshan studied the tactical display with cold satisfaction. The rogue Zara Vekthul had been elusive, but her blood bond with the human had made her easier to track. The station is requesting safe passage under neutral zone protocols, reported his tactical officer, Subprime Vex. Denied, Kether replied, his voice carrying the authority of 1,000 kills. We have a rogue to retrieve and an abomination to destroy. On Nexus 7, Marcus watched the massive ship position itself for attack. Your people don't mess around, do they? Zara's expression was grim. Kether Volshan, I know him. He's a traditionalist, believes in the old ways. He'll see you as a threat to the natural order. She turned to Vera. We need another way off. This station. The docking bays are sealed, Vera replied, her fingers dancing over the control interface. But there's a maintenance pod in Bay 7. It's not much, but it's better than nothing. Marcus grabbed his gear. What about the civilians? They're not his target, Zara said. Kether wants us alive, me to face judgment, you to be studied and dissected. They moved through the station's maintenance corridors, avoiding the main thoroughfares where panicked civilians were taking shelter. The walls vibrated with the impact of the Crimson Fang's tractor beam, locking onto the station's superstructure. There's something you need to know, Zara said as they reached the maintenance bay. When I first fed from a human, I experienced their memories, their emotions. But when I touched you ... She paused, her amber eyes reflecting inner turmoil. I saw flashes of the past, not your memories, older ones. Ancient ones. Marcus sealed his helmet and activated the pod systems. What kind of memories? The war didn't start the way the histories claim, Zara said, climbing into the co-pilot's seat. Both our species were created by someone else. Something else. We were meant to be partners, not enemies. The pod launched just as Vorthik boarding parties breached the station's hull. Marcus pushed the small craft to its limits, heading for the asteroid field that bordered the neutral zone. But the Crimson Fang was faster, its fighter escorts closing in rapidly. "They're jamming our communications," Marcus reported. "We won't be able to call for help." "We don't need help," Zara replied. "We need understanding." She placed her hand on the pod's bioneural interface, a piece of hybrid technology that most humans couldn't use. "I'm going to try something. Don't resist." Before Marcus could object, he felt Zara's consciousness touch his mind. The sensation was unlike anything he'd experienced, intimate, invasive, but not unpleasant. Through their connection, he could sense her memories, centuries of war, the loss of her family, the growing doubt about her people's cause. But beneath her surface thoughts, he found something else. Ancient genetic memory, passed down through generations of Vorthik. Images of a time before the war, when both species served a greater purpose among the stars. "We were guardians," Zara whispered, her voice echoing in his mind. "Protectors of something precious. But we forgot our purpose and turned on each other." The fighter escorts opened fire, their energy weapons punching through the pod's shields. Marcus felt the hybrid technology respond to their combined will, the ship's systems, adapting in ways that shouldn't have been possible. The pod's hull shifted, becoming more organic, more alive. "What's happening to us?" Marcus asked. "Evolution," Zara replied. "The awakening of what we were always meant to be." The Crimson Fang launched its main weapon, a bioplasma torpedo that could vaporize small ships. But instead of fleeing, Marcus turned toward the massive projectile. Through their shared consciousness, he and Zara reached out with abilities they didn't fully understand. The torpedo stopped mid-flight, held in place by an invisible force. Then, impossibly, it began to change, its destructive payload transforming into something else entirely. The revelation: the bioplasma torpedo hung suspended in space, its deadly energy matrix reshaping itself into something beautiful and terrifying. What had been a weapon of destruction became a chrysalis of pure possibility, pulsing with the combined will of two species that had forgotten their shared origin. Aboard the Crimson Fang, War Prime Kether stared at the impossible sight with a mixture of rage and ancient fear. "The architects," he whispered, a word that hadn't been spoken in Vorthik space for millennia. "They're awakening the old bonds. Shall we retreat, War Prime?" asked Sub-Prime Vex, her voice trembling with uncertainty. "No," Kether replied, his predatory instincts overriding his fear. "We finish this. All ships converge on the pod, maximum firepower." In the maintenance pod, Marcus and Zara were no longer separate beings. Their consciousness had merged, creating something new and unprecedented. Through their shared awareness, they could perceive the true history of the galaxy, time when the Vorthik and humanity's ancestors had worked together as the architect's chosen guardians. "We were the balance," Zara's voice echoed in the shared mind space. "One species to preserve life, one to guide its evolution." But the architects vanished, and without their guidance, we turned on each other. Marcus felt the weight of cosmic responsibility settling on his shoulders. "And now? Now we choose," Zara replied. "We can complete what our ancestors started, or we can let the galaxy burn." The Vorthik fleet opened fire, dozens of ships unleashing their full destructive potential. But the energy that should have vaporized the pod was absorbed, transformed, and redirected. The space around them began to shimmer with possibility, reality itself becoming malleable. Through their connection, Marcus and Zara reached out to every ship in the fleet, touching the minds of warriors who had known only war. They shared the ancient memories, the truth that had been buried beneath centuries of hatred and fear. On the Crimson Fang, War Prime Kether felt the touch of the merged consciousness and recoiled. But the memories were too strong, too real to deny. He saw his own ancestors working alongside human explorers, building wonders that spanned star systems. He saw the architects beings of pure energy and thought who had shaped both species for a purpose greater than war. "It's true," he whispered, his conviction crumbling. "We were one people, divided by design." The transformation spread through the fleet like a virus of understanding. Vorthic warriors who had never known anything but conflict suddenly remembered why they had originally traveled to the stars. Not to conquer or consume, but to preserve and protect. On Nexus 7, the mixed population watched in awe as the space battle became something else entirely. The Vorthic ships were changing, their bioorganic hulls flowering with new growth. The weapons that had threatened to destroy the station were transforming into something beautiful, a living artwork that spoke to the possibility of peace. "They're not fighting anymore," Vera observed, her voice filled with wonder. "They single quotes dancing." In the maintenance pod, Marcus and Zara began to separate, their individual consciousness returning, but forever changed. They looked at each other with new understanding, no longer predator and prey, but partners in a cosmic destiny. "The war isn't over," Zara said, her amber eyes reflecting the light of the transformed fleet. "There are those on both sides who will resist this change." Marcus nodded, feeling the weight of his hybrid nature settling into something purposeful. "Then we give them a choice: evolution or extinction." Through the viewport, they watched as the Crimson Fang opened a communication channel to the Terran Federation. War Prime Kether's image appeared on screens throughout human space, his voice carrying the authority of absolute truth. "People of Terra," he began, his words translated into dozens of languages. "We have been enemies for too long. We have forgotten our common purpose, our shared destiny among the stars. But the architects have given us a chance to remember." The response was swift and divided. Some human leaders called for increased military action, believing the message was a trick. Others, particularly those who had studied the ancient mysteries, recognized the truth in Kether's words. "It's beginning," Zara said, her hand finding Marcus's. "The galaxy will have to choose. Embrace the truth of what we were, or face the consequences of what we've become." Marcus squeezed her hand, feeling the blood resonance between them stabilizing into something sustainable. "Then we better make sure they choose wisely." As the transformed Vorthic fleet prepared to jump to hyperspace, carrying the message of unity to both sides of the war, Marcus and Zara knew their journey was just beginning. They were no longer just human and Vorthic. They were something new, something necessary. They were the first of the awakened, and the galaxy would never be the same.